if you're looking to work abroad in the future, my recommendations would be to understand the culture of where you're working. I don't think you need to look at design for the sectors you're looking in, because sectors are going international best practice. So culture is one big issue, and I think the second issue is really trying to understand the regulatory framework for that region. And the reason I say region there is that culture tends to be local and regulation tends to be regional.
Clear idea of what constitutes architectural value, but actually that's only a corner of the whole spectrum. And unless you understand what's of value to your client, and the client is anyway made up of a lot of stakeholders within the client and in the community as well, and they'll be interested in what it's worth to them to use, what it's worth in terms of exchange, somebody else would pay for it if they had to sell it, what it's worth in terms of the image it conveys, the messages that it conveys, internally and externally, what it does to the environment, is it a cost or a benefit, what it does to the community, social cost and benefit, and finally, what kind of a statement is it culturally. And in that last corner is where the architectural value lies. But it's one pole in a six-sided thing, and maybe only part of the cultural pole anyway. Because it may be that it's a historic building or something like that where the public would recognise it, but if it's not, if it's a modern building, it has to fight to be seen to be culturally important in some way or other. But I think it's a fascinating area because for the vast majority of architectural education and the culture of our profession is that those other forms of value are hard to understand, not considered to be particularly important, whereas the sort of value that we understand is extremely hard to convey and is often completely poo-pooed by stakeholders who wish we were doing proper architecture, in other words with columns and arches and lovely brickwork.
So is it down to us to understand their value, or is it down to us to educate them to our values?
Well, we have tried for the last 50 years to educate them into our values, and I think we have to do a lot more about understanding what they see and what they think, because as you well know, you only see what you know, you only recognise, you don't actually perceive.
Yeah.
When you see something as an architect, you're doing so with an educated eye, which is not visible at all to somebody who's not got this educational background. And in a way, our education cuts us off from seeing the world the way our clients see it, seeing the way our planning officers see it, seeing the way the people in the street see it. We need to understand those just as much in order to communicate successfully.
So to a young architect starting in this industry, was the first thing they didn't learn at school and should learn pretty quickly?
Well, I think they should talk to people about how they perceive their environment, what's important to them, what they like, what they don't like, and why. What it is that made them feel good about their place of work, what made them feel bad, and the same thing with where they were educated, what caused them to struggle, what caused them to feel it was easy, their attitude to the outdoors, their attitude to the indoors, their attitude to social life in the environment, eating in the street, all sorts of things like that there's popular culture about these things, and there's also literary culture, but architects don't get any of it.
Right.
We're in our own world, where we have our own set of assumed values. And Richard Rogers is partly to blame because most architecture thinks of itself as being in the Mediterranean, and we're not.
Yeah.
So this idea of coffee bar culture is highly Mediterranean.